I die, look into mine eyes. When I die, look into mine eyes. They will mutely say, I will be thine always. My Lord, I will be thine always. Hello friends, Nayaswami Hriman here again, and today we continue our Monday through Friday broadcasts on the unpublished writings of Paramhansa Yogananda. I noticed here, and looking out the window at the Kameno Hermitage on Kameno Island, I'm seeing little birds flitting around. There's a feeling of springtime in the air here. Notwithstanding that, I have a slightly different topic to share, and I'm going to read a prayer demand, a meditation that is published as opposed to unpublished. It's from Metaphysical Meditation, so sorry about my beat-up old book, but it's called I'm Flying Home. As some of you probably know, a good friend of ours, one of the founding members of Ananda Cornell, just left her body a few days ago, and there is an astral ascension service for her this evening, broadcast from Ananda Village. And this meditation, or whatever you'd call it, by Yogananda is one that I have often used at the time of the departure of a friend, and it's entitled I'm Flying Home. Goodbye, blue house of heaven, farewell stars and celestial celebrities, and your dramas on the screen of space. Goodbye, flowers with your traps of beauty and fragrance. You can hold me no longer, for I am flying home. Adieu to the warm embrace of sunshine. Farewell, cool, soothing, comforting breeze. Goodbye, entertaining music of man. I stayed long reveling with all of you, dancing with my variously costumed thoughts, drinking the wine of my feelings and my mundane will. I have now forsaken the intoxications of delusion. Goodbye, muscles, bones, and bodily motions. Farewell, breath. I cast thee away from my breast. Adieu, heart-throbs, emotions, thoughts, and memories. I am flying home in a plane of silence. I go to feel my heart throb in Him, my God. I soar in the plane of consciousness above, beneath, on the left and on the right, within and without, everywhere, to find that in every nook of my space home, I have always been in the sacred presence of my Father. Imagine now your own departure, and it's so varied. Some people it's instant, maybe a heart attack, as our friend Seva a month or so ago, truly one of the founding members of Ananda and Swami Kriyananda's right hand back in the early days. She collapsed from a heart attack and was gone within moments. Yogananda himself said, I choose to leave by a heart attack. It's simple, it's quick, it's relatively painless. But whether you go that way or in some prolonged way, our friend Ananda suffered greatly, but not for a long time. I'm not sure I can measure it, weeks or maybe a month, month and a half. She had a ravaging cancer of the blood of some sort I'm not familiar with. But then she entered the hospice state and was given relief and died both peacefully but also joyfully, truly in a state of grace by those who were at her bedside and observed her departure. But we can't know how we'll go, and it won't always be, like St. Francis lying on the ground and and leaving his body. But whatever it is, it certainly can be said with some confidence that how we live and what we think and so on will very much influence how we leave this body. I think of Lahiri Mahashai, Jesus Christ, Swami Sri Yukteswar. All of them had a moment of hesitation, shall we say, when intuitively they knew of their imminent demise, imminent departure from this earth plane, from their bodies. Jesus, of course, had a really good reason to not look forward to his departure. But what I'm saying is even great saints, avatars no less, have that sense of hesitancy. Curiously, so far as all accounts of Yogananda's passing are concerned that I know of, there was no hesitation on his part. He knew it was coming. I won't go through all the accounts of that, but there was no hesitation, I won't say fear, but, not even an ounce of that. There are many humans who say, I'm ready to go. And I think each one of us, when we contemplate our ultimate departure, will sometimes respond with bravado. Other times we wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night. It's sort of like a pregnant woman, she can prepare with exercises and breathing exercises and good diet and just good thoughts and so on and so forth for that, for the birth of her child. But how the birth process will go is unpredictable, okay? No matter what you do. It's good to live good in order to die well, but nonetheless, we have to be prepared for life as well as for death. And so this isn't necessarily a popular subject, but what I have always thought and sometimes said is that meditation, daily meditation done deeply and well and consciously intentional, is a preparation, a reenactment for our departure from this body. The very process by which in the deeper, more advanced yogic meditation techniques, the very process of that is based on the process by which we leave this body, as well as the process in reverse by which the soul, spirit, enters the body. And so those of us who practice advanced techniques like Kriya Yoga and work with the chakras and the subtle spine, we are preparing ourselves for the experience of exiting when we achieve a state beyond our thoughts. Funny, I have a friend who, a regular participant and member of our Sangha here in Washington. He's quite a character. He'll probably never listen to this, but he and I argue back and forth playfully. He is of the mold, I think it comes from the transcendental meditation tradition or whatever, but he's of the mold that, you just stay present with your thoughts and it doesn't matter. He doesn't like me to use the word, it's sort of what I interpret it is it's sort of like saying I'm fine the way I am. I don't want to be any different than I am. I'm just wonderful. And ain't no one going to tell me any different. I don't need to change. I don't, need to go into some altered state. I understand that. That is one way of expressing the whole approach to meditation, sometimes called mindfulness. I just sit. That's why people use that word, I sit. In other words, it's a very Buddhistic vibration. I'm not saying Buddha taught this, but it's basically, hey, I'm good. Yeah. And, okay. That's fine. I'm glad you're good. But I think the heart wants something more than just, is that all there is, like Frank Sinatra once sang? Then let's go dancing. And that is, you see that attitude, even with, some of the more, they call it crazy wisdom, when they do crazy things. It's just a stage, so fine, it's fine. But transcendence, when we sit in meditation and when my thoughts have gone to rest, that's the time I see you best. Oh, 'tis lovely sitting in the silence with my guru by my side on the sunny banks of my mind, and so on. And so when we reach that state, which we do in the second or third stage of sleep beyond the dream state, as I have often mentioned, we reach that state of being, that state of consciousness, self-awareness, without name or form or senses or any conditions imposed on the simple experience of being. But when you die, or that is to say, well, that's what we say, but when you leave this body, as we prefer to say, because this body is not you, you're deprived of the human brain and nervous system and senses and physical sight and so forth. And so most people who are not accustomed to the rarefied, oxygen-less atmosphere of breathlessness or near states of breathlessness, which can be expressed as beyond thought. I don't want to say thoughtlessness because that has a different meaning, but transcendence. And so the more in meditation we practice and achieve periods of complete transcendence, the more familiar and comfortable we will be in the after-death state. This is why some people, because of the intensity of death, there is a kind of awakening. Your whole life goes before you. You see a light, or you see your loved ones, and all these sort of things that talk about. But that's sort of like squeezing toothpaste out of a toothpaste tube, and but it's over in a nanosecond. In that state, everything can happen like right now. But I think most people just drop off to sleep because they can't sustain the heights of Mount Everest without oxygen, without the brain, without the body and the nervous system. Only those of great willpower, concentration, quietness of mind, the ability to become absorbed completely in what one is doing. And so you can see that I'm implying not just spiritually minded people, but even great composers or inventors or scientists like an Einstein. They preserved Einstein's brain. I don't really know why, but it was sort of a crude thing to do, poor fellow. But people like that, are in fact more comfortable going beyond the body. Okay? And so that's what meditation prepares us for that transcendent state. Now, I've often joked, I was much younger then when I joked, it's less of a joke to me now, that if you could think of no better reason to meditate, it would be in order to stay awake on the astral and stay somewhat conscious as you leave this body. Very difficult to do. Think of the child going through the birth canal of the mother and coming out. That's a lot of G-force, of pressure on that body. So the baby presumably loses consciousness, as in fact, to some degree, I suppose, the mother does too. So when your astral body, as it were, gets squeezed into that and is forced, just sort of ripped from the physical body and forced to go up that tiny thumb-like sushumna, out seeing the light at the end of that tunnel, it's going to be, if you're not prepared for it, it's going to be pretty crazy. And you might just sort of, like people do in an accident, blank out. You might lose consciousness. In fact, you probably will. So Mahasamadhi, a great saint is one who can go through that death process, or as I prefer, the rebirth on the astral plane process, without losing consciousness. And so this is what we have to face, and where, Jesus said something about where your treasure lay, that's where your heart is, or something like that. The things you think about during the day, the little addictions you have, ask yourself, what cravings might come with me when I no longer have this physical body for a time? It's those cravings, along with a lot of other things, that will draw you back again. And the stronger those cravings, the sooner you'll come back. So these are my thoughts on the passing of our saintly friend Ananda. And there have been other passages in the last month or so. A young boy who died tragically in a car fire. And of course, Seva, who I mentioned earlier, one of the founders of Ananda. So this is a time of reflection, even as spring is in the air. Isn't that interesting? Okay, great souls, I've overstayed